Good day, Barbados. Let me start by wishing a happy May Day to all. Even as today we give special thanks to God for all of the hardworking men and women whose commitment, effort, and sacrifice continue to build up this great land, which as a new republic is now truly our very own. Today we celebrate hard work, we celebrate productivity, and we celebrate resilience. The resilience of our organization and the resilience of our people. The last 2 years have been challenging, but notwithstanding the challenge, we have seized the opportunities to reset and to refocus so that we can continue to pursue and achieve our mission in a changing reality. But what is that mission? Our mission remains to improve the well-being of workers and their families. This remains our daily focus. At 80 years old, the Barbados Workers Union is proud that even when from time to time we have had to reassess and reset to accommodate changing circumstances, the mission set by our forefathers has guided us through the process of rebuilding. And during that process of building up and rebuilding, even where our preference has been to adopt specific approaches, it sometimes becomes necessary for our union to use alternative methods to pursue the same objective. We continue to use whatever legitimate means rests within our power to advance the cause of workers. The Barbados Workers Union is therefore proud that today, in just over 18 months of re-establishing its identity with a political party which supports the aspirations of workers, there have been a number of marked achievements which we can report. These include the establishment of a national minimum wage in just over 4 months, the correction of the anomaly that denied workers of the Transport Board access to a gratuity. Coming out of the annual delegates conference held in August last year, 2021, the BWU submitted a resolution which called on the government to review its value-added taxing policy on fuel to bring relief on the cost of energy to the people of Barbados. This was presented in a budget just over 7 weeks ago, so that was done. In just over a year of the BWU again being involved in politics, discussion has started on a trade union recognition bill. This comes after decades of agitation going back to the Right Excellency Frank Walcott, decades of agony, injustice, and indignity that generations of workers have suffered in order to pursue their right to have the trade union of their choice represent them through collective bargaining is being corrected. In just over a year, changes are before Cabinet for amendments to the Protection of Wages Act. Again, in just over a year, the Barbados Workers Union has caused the government to accept that the Labor Clauses Act, Chapter 349 in the laws of Barbados, can no longer be observed only in the breach. For at a time when a number of capital projects are being anticipated as the government works to restore the economy through rebuilding public infrastructure, the government must resist the temptation to enter into contracts at conditions below an acceptable level of social protection, whether it is for construction of public works or for the manufacture of goods or supply of services. Moreover, the International Labour Convention, which sets the floor of provision, Convention 94, prescribes that public authorities must raise the bar and act as model employers. Indeed, the government must be applauded for moving to strengthen the legislation at this time. But the Barbados Workers Union has been insistent that while it is always a good thing to strengthen or even introduce new pieces of legislation to advance the cause of workers, it is more important or even equally important to enforce the legislation that already exists on the books. This is particularly easy to do where there's no difference or concern over interpretation of the law. One therefore has to wonder why for years companies have been rewarded by successive governments for observing hours and conditions of labor which are less favorable than those established over time. The G4S dispute in late 2020 corrected this, at least as far as the wages are concerned in the security sector. But in construction, it is still glaring, where companies pay sometimes at half the rates established in the industry, and they get the bulk of government contracts. One has to wonder why these companies would be allowed to renege on NIS obligations by consciously misclassifying workers as being on contracts for service, but still get public contracts. This is why the Barbados Workers Union has been insisting that government must lead by example, so that even where it is understood that government might need to walk a tightrope with regard to new hires, given the prescripts of an IMF program, the BWU has not accepted that denying a worker social security and social protection, and even possibly a pension, can be excusable. A responsible government must not enter into arrangements where it knows, but chooses not to know, what it is doing when it serves to deny workers the minimum provisions of decency. My friends, 80 years is not 80 days, and a responsible union that remains committed to the mission of improving the well-being of all cannot choose to be irresponsible or to act impulsively and erratically. For while such behavior may capture the attention of those who lavish in sensationalism, it serves no public good. The BWU's approach is to be visionary, and this requires us at all times to be alert to the fundamental shifts which are taking place in the space within which we represent, and to position ourselves in a way that gives labor its best chance. The Barbados Workers Union knows how to reset. We know how to respond. Comrades and fellow Barbadians, I now focus some attention on matters relating to the public service. For the past few days, the subject of public sector increases has caught much public attention. It might be a useful time to remind the public that long before there was a Productivity Council in Barbados, there was a heavy focus on excellence and productivity being championed by the Barbados Workers Union through our own Orlando Gabby Scott. In fact, in most cases where there are collective agreements on productivity and performance-based bonuses, this has been the outcome of proposals being put forward by the Barbados Workers Union and the workers which we represent. We therefore don't need to be convinced about the need for increased levels of productivity, nor does the BWU now have to jump on any bandwagon to commit to a national response to encourage renewed personal commitment to work or to better work ethics. We get it, we teach it, and we live it to the extent that even in our rules and regulations, there is an addendum which was included in 2001 that speaks on the importance of productivity. What we do not get is the fact that while there is the call for greater productivity, for every percentage increase given to a worker as an adjustment, employers seem to want 10 times the amount in blood, sweat, and tears. So unions still have to be fighting the traditional issues that were being fought for before independence. The simple lesson, which we are still reminded of daily, is that greed doesn't disappear. There's still a certain class that will continue to fight against enfranchisement and worker empowerment in order to maintain its supremacy over the masses. And that is why in 2022, we have an employer in production ready to go to war over a 0.5 percentage point increase to be given to workers, and in circumstances where that employer openly admits to doing well. What we demand from the public and private sector is agreement that there must be a transparent and ongoing arrangement where effort and output translate to returns to the employee. On matters of the public sector increases and related matters, it is fair to say that technical advisors should stay away from public commentary on matters that will be subject to political determinations. I like to call this holding your own lane. where you start by recognizing that you really have no place to speak, then you shouldn't. The BWU is not turning away from the need for adjustment. We have already signaled to the government of the need for an increase, but our focus, specifically for the past 2 years, has been more to do with ensuring that workers are not being taken advantage of using an IMF program as the basis, or a pandemic, and now the war, to push the worker to the point where he is unable to take care of himself and his family. The Barbados Workers Union is definitely not running away from a wages increase, but we have been calling on the government to address the many urgent and critical issues which reflect the mindset that just rewards should not come to labor. The BWU at all times remains mindful of the need for maturity, order, and common sense in doing the things we do, and we offer no apology for that. We were under no illusion that political participation would address all of the challenges confronting labor in the public sector or even nationally. For we recognize that problems are not always politically motivated. Problems can be existential issues, they can be managerial challenges, or they can be a result of resource deficiencies. That is why the BWU is on record as calling for a complete reform of the public sector, starting with an overhaul of the human resources arm of government to make it fit for purpose. There are a plethora of challenges in the public sector that are undermining the system, because at the level of the human resource function in the public service, there is no urgency to addressing them. People on leave with pay for years, while issues lag before the commissions. Officers being unable to be appointed because of matters that are before the Ministry of the Public Service for more than 3 years. Allowances in departments like customs still not being paid. What is the result? Workers in the public service who felt a certain protection from the government as an employer now come to work wondering if the job they have today is the job that they will have tomorrow. The BWU is giving attention to issues such as these as a priority because they attack the very core of what we recognize to be decent work arrangements. The Barbados Workers Union has also been treating to this in the private sector, where sinister, or should I say more sinister work schedules and arrangements are being put in place to create a mode of insecurity that sees the worker getting paid not from the time he's scheduled to report for work, but only from the time his first assignment commences. So you tell a man come to work at 2 p.m., control what he can do, you control where he can go. You might even send him to lunch as soon as he gets to work at 2 p.m. Well, the manager or supervisor waits on an area to assign him. The question is, where is the humanity in that? Where is the dignity in that? This trend towards 0-hour contracts must be corrected. Finally, I would like to touch a little on the cost of living. While we all have some appreciation of what is triggering cost of living shocks worldwide and within Barbados, and while we commend government for the decent job which it is doing in navigating us through these rough and uncharted waters, it does not make it easier for any of us to accept the burden we face as we go to the supermarkets and as we go to buy different products and services. So yes, COVID exacerbating global supply chain woes and the war inflating the price of fuel and food are chief among the issues. But the BWU remains concerned for the capacity of our people to meet their food and energy imperatives. That is why the union has been advocating for improved terms and conditions, and yes, improved wages for avenues through which we can bolster citizen resilience. It is in times like these that the spirit of cooperation should prevail at the level of the social partnership, and indeed across all levels of the society. But sadly, The response of too many employers is a demand for more while offering less. The Barbados Workers Union therefore recognizes that it has its work cut out as we work to ensure that everyone can keep their heads above water. Outside of the salary and wages negotiations, the union is proud to report that it is making good progress on concluding arrangements for a renewable energy project with a private partner and the BNOCL that will not only lead to major energy cost reductions to the union, but additionally, the public in the surrounding community at Mangrove will also be direct beneficiaries. This union does not only talk the talk, we walk it. So my friends, this year, on the 80th anniversary of our union, and on this special May Day occasion, we choose to reset, recalibrate, and refocus our goals for the future. A clear vision and a steady hand is what we have been pleased to offer to Barbados' nation-building effort over these past 8 years. May God continue to be our guide. I will not end without inviting as many of you who can to the National Botanical Gardens tomorrow for a day of fun, a day of loads of food, and a day of entertainment as we take time off to reset. You are encouraged to bring your families and come out. Bring your food too, pack your picnic baskets and come out to our May Day public holiday event. We hope to see you there. Again, I wish you all a very happy May Day 2022.